the competition today, having another team here, and just how's that going?
It was fun. I mean, we ran a good amount of plays today. We had like sets of 5 and a couple sets of those within each period, so it was good to be able to get into a little groove and get a handful of plays in a row together and then do some move the ball. Get to see a little bit different style of defense. It was you always get good work when you get to do that.
How did you feel like the offense ran with you guys? Elijah made a really nice catch there.
Yeah, there were some things early on, like they were probably playing pretty tight again, man coverage early on that maybe we can be a little bit sharper on and things like that. But when they were playing zone, and then as the practice progressed, I felt like we did a good job of beating that stuff.
Between you came in mid-season or whatever last year, and seeing Elijah Moore, what have you seen from him?
But you see a lot of you see a lot of the same things. I mean, obviously, I didn't get to see him during camp last year and see the strides that he's made from last year's camp to this year's camp. But his ability to just stop and start is, really, really, really rare. I mean, I don't know how many times I've seen somebody that can stop as well as he can. And to be honest with you, Garrett is pretty similar to that, in that kind of play. So. We're going to continue to put him in positions where I think he does those things well, and then clean up some other little areas so that when teams are playing zone coverage against us, he's sitting in the right spot, and he doesn't need to use that explosiveness all the time. We just need to get him maybe tightened up a little bit in those areas. But in terms of just athleticism and toughness, like his ability to just go get the ball, and obviously come game day, we haven't really had that yet, but come game day, he nothing's too big for him, so he's able to compete at the highest level and keep all those things, and it works in his favor.
Is anybody Elijah Moore remind you of that you might have played with?
Well, I mean, in some ways. I think of Steve Smith just because of how explosive Steve was. And, Steve didn't necessarily run routes like everybody else did, but he was always in the right spot. And I think Elijah has some of that in him. He can kind of feel when he's open, and you might not always get the same depth he may run the same route several times, completely different every time. And I think with him, it's just getting, like when I played with Steve, even though he was doing that, he was always in the right spot, always in the right timing. And I think Elijah's there 90% of the time. It's just that last little bit, when he's doing those things, getting the feel for being in that right spot every time. Because that with a guy like that, with a guy that has his physical abilities, he's going to be a little bit different than everybody else, and you have to let him use those superpowers to his advantage.
You're a week in now to full go with the first team and whatnot. And obviously, last year you came in midstream. What kind of place are you in right now, by comparison to last year when you're just kind of picking it all up, and how comfortable are you right now?
Yeah, I mean, listen. Anytime you can get more reps, the more comfortable you feel. It doesn't matter what year you're in, or how many years you're in the offense. I mean, those things matter a little bit. But anytime you can get out there and get a lot of reps, it just helps with confidence and operating at a high level. If you want to do that, you have to have the confidence and the belief that you're going to be able to go out and do it. So just coming out here every day and getting to work with the ones, it just, you get a little bit more reps at it, and you're going against the ones on defense, so you just get that little bit more. And then the more you do it, and you prove to yourself that you're coming together as an offense, the more prepared you're going to be, and the more confident you're going to feel when you take the field.
Age, whatever we'll say, but I mean, are you somebody that still does need that reinforcement?
I think you always need. I think to some extent you're always. That's part of what practice is for. It's obviously to get yourself better and hone your skills, but part of that is going out there and doing what you expect yourself to do and proving it to yourself day in and day out. And not only proving it to yourself, but proving it to your teammates that you belong where you are. All those things. I think I believe they're always important.
You talked about how Elijah and Garrett both have that kind of unique ability to
stop and start. From a quarterback standpoint, to have multiple options to do that, just what does that bring to the table for you, or how does it make your job easier?
Well, right. I mean, I think what it brings is when these guys really hone those skills and really get it down and really fine tune what they're really good at and when to use it, how to use it, when they don't need to use it as much. It's going to help us when teams want to play man against us, to have guys that are really explosive and can put their foot in the ground and beat man coverage.
When you were here with your first stint, the team obviously struggled back that season. How much better is this receiver group now versus you have Corey Davis and Elijah and Garrett? Just how much more explosive is this group than when you were here 2 years ago?
Listen, I mean, we're running a different offense. I'm trying to think back. You know, we had some guys that could stretch the field vertically that year. I think it's just a different type of group at this point. You know, we're probably, with the exception of Corey and Mims, you know, we're a little bit smaller and just a little bit quicker, you know, things like that. So, you know, maybe we don't quite stretch the field like we did that year, but we can beat man in different ways. And the other thing is these guys are still young, so you know, I think they're going to grow up really quickly because they are going to be such a big part of our offense. And you know, the good thing for us is I think they're ready for it. I think Elijah proved last year he's ready for it. Garrett has a great head on his shoulders, so it doesn't look like he's going to shy away. Yeah, so I think if anything that year we did at least have some guys that stretched the field. And now we're just a little bit younger, but we have some explosiveness, and we have Corey to kind of anchor that room, and you should see him. I mean, we talk about those guys getting their speeds up and practicing hard, and the amount of reps that we have these days. You know, you're not running 100 reps in practice like maybe you were 5-10 years ago. So the reps that we do get, we got to completely attack them, and you should see Corey out here every day. When you put the film on, I mean, he's running. So he's setting the example in that room, and I think that's going to drive it.
What do you need to get out of Monday night for a second preseason game? What are you looking to accomplish in that game?
Those things are always tough. I mean, you put a lot of pressure on yourself to go out there and play well because you're only going to get it. You're not going to get like a whole game worth of like series to try to prove that you're a good offense and put up 30 points. So you probably put a little bit extra pressure on yourself to go out there and have success because you don't get that many plays. But just like what I just talked about, it's mostly about just reinforcing what we've been doing in practice. It's that next step of mental, whatever it is, so that we can feel good going into game one that we're going to be able to go out there and win the game if we need to win the game.
Dynamic when you've been practicing with this team for a couple of days and then you play them. You know, is that almost better because of a test, because so to speak, because you know their stuff, or that you know each other's stuff, or not that you're showing any game plan stuff. But.
I don't know. I think people when I've been a part of these, it's been approached in different ways. I've sat in rooms where we put on some Atlanta film and we say, all right, here's what we do. Let's go in with 5 to 10 plays in practice today that we know we can beat, that we know beats their coverages. And then I've been a part of other, offensive coordinators and offenses that we just continue to run our stuff. And you do what you do, and let's see how it goes up against these guys. So I think the practices are good because it's a little switch up for camp. It brings out some competitiveness. How that relates to the game, I don't know. I think most of the time in these preseason games, coaches are going in with a goal in their mind, no matter if they practiced against the team or not. Maybe they want to see this guy. Maybe they want to see how their run game works. Maybe they want to see how their pass protection holds up and how the receivers do. So I don't necessarily think the practice has too big of an impact on the game.
Last time we talked, you were talking about how you still love this, love football. You went here. How do you deal with some of the more monotonous aspects of, walkthroughs and I'm sure you love playing the game, but how do you deal with that part of it?
You joke around with guys, you complain about it a little bit, but it's just kind of like that you're just kind of fake complaining just to get somebody to laugh or bait somebody into just tricking them for a little bit, whatever it may be. I mean, I do have to remind myself we're not out there running 120 plays. Like, there's really nothing to complain about at training camp at this point. It does, like, and we practice early in the morning. Like, we've been practicing pretty early, 10 o'clock, 10:15 this time. So you're done with the biggest part of your day relatively early. So there is something about having to keep your focus throughout the course of the day. And then we always finish with a walkthrough, and it is a good test of just how well you can stay locked in, because it's set up almost to like go out there and have bad walkthroughs. But I think the guys have done a great job. And yeah, believe me, it's going through all of our heads at some point, like, man, we got to walk through. You know, like, we got to walk through tonight. That's right. And you just do it, and you have fun. Like I said, you sit there and you talk about it with each other, and you have fun with it. And the next thing you know, you're going out there and you're walking through and you're having fun because you're on the field. You're playing games. We're playing some stupid game while special teams is going on and making ourselves laugh. And that's kind of when the team becomes a team. You know, all of a sudden the O-linemen started playing this little game, and the next thing you know, Sauce is coming over. The next thing you know, MC is coming over. You know, and you get everybody involved in it, and it ends up being like, you know, obviously really important to get those walkthrough reps and what you're going to do the next day. But that's kind of when you have some fun and you can build some camaraderie.
You're one of the last guys here around here that's even seen 2 days, probably, right? And I mean, how many guys on this roster have seen 2 days?
And you know, and I only dealt with it for a few years, but at this point, like, the guys that are on our team, like, at least like when I was in high school, like, you know, we had pretty regular 2-a-days. Like, these guys, I don't think they've ever done it in their lives, let alone in the NFL. You know what I mean? So it's a completely different perspective.
Dwayne was up here the other day. He said you guys are from the same draft class.
Yes,
Only like
we are.
Left, right?
Yeah,
Or
we
something
are.
like that?
Well, we started talking. We talked about a few of the guys that are obviously still in the league, and you know, we came up with a few guys, and I'm sure there's a few more. I don't know. You'd have to do the research. Obviously, I can name a few off my head, but it's crazy. I mean, you see it. If you're in the NFL for 3 years, you see it. Every year the team turns over. There's 30 new guys on a team. You know, by the time you're in your 4th year, like when I was in Baltimore, there was probably 2 guys that were actually from my draft class that were still on the team. So it just, you know, that's how it is.
Do one more?
Do you ever think now that guys might look at you like you looked at Ray or Ed, like when you got there, right?
It's funny. I mean, I don't know if I'll ever be looked at like Ray and Ed. Those guys were just, you know, next level. You know, I remember walking in the locker room and seeing those guys and just being like, you know, and obviously I wasn't a defensive guy, you know, but when you see those guys, it's different. And obviously, as a you grow up watching them, and I'll never forget like the first time Ray Lewis said something to me, and we're like the first time I touched Ray's shoulder, just like kind of like, I don't know, dapping him up or something. And it was like the hardest surface I've ever touched in my life. Yeah, I mean, I'm fortunate to be able to tell those stories to guys, like, because everybody, of course, wants to know, like, what was Ray Lewis like? You know, what was Ed Reed like? And they were awesome. I mean, they were unbelievable, and the best to ever do it at their positions. Like, I look back and just how fortunate I was to play with those guys. And I'm not like huge on like all the stuff pregame and all that. Ray Lewis coming out of the tunnel is the best thing in the world. So like I always try to rub that in people's faces if they never got to experience that, because it was unbelievable. When I play a game, I still like am out there pregame, and I don't care to run out of the tunnel. Even when I was in Baltimore, I'm like, can't the defense just come out every week? But I'm still on the field some days. I'm like, man, I wish Ray could come out today. You know, so.
Do you have a lot of guys asking about those guys?
Everybody always does. Yeah, everybody always does. Of course. You know.
All right.
Yep. Thanks.